Hey guys, for this demo, we're gonna do a pillowcase. So when I open up Marvelous, first I want to do is delete all avatars and then start a whole new scene. I'm just gonna wing out the size of the pillowcase. So first I'm gonna go to the rectangle polygon tool and just draw out basically the bottom of the pillowcase. So when I have it in the editor, this will be the bottom. So when you draw it out, you know the camera angle is already set facing forward. So this side is the front, this side is the back. Most of the time, you could notice that the back side is darker. It's not always obvious for some reason. This is going to be the bottom of the pillowcase, so I'm going to rotate it downward and then just place it on the bottom. And if I hit simulate, it'll just slide into the ground. That would be the bottom of the pillowcase. Next I'll do is copy this and put it on the top. So copy it and then just paste it. As you paste it, if you hold shift, it'll drag on any of these 45-degree angles. So I'll put it on the top just because I'll know this is the top, this is the bottom. So I'll just slide it down. So that will be the pillowcase. So when I copy and paste it, it's going to be exactly the same as the bottom one. So the top is the wrong side facing. So to flip it, you got to click it, right click it, and then flip vertically. Okay, so after it's flipped, you'll see that this is the bottom, this is the top. So we need to make the inside of it. So go back to the polygon tool. You can do it a couple different ways. If you want to be precise, you could double click one of them to see the exact length. Underneath the cursor, it'll show a blue number, which is 3033.93 millimeters. Make the cube to be exactly that, but it's a good reference guide to at least start with. So after I get the number, I could just click anywhere and it'll just give me this number. So the width, I want 3040, I said. The height, don't want it that high, so let's just go with 50. No, 200. There we go. After I get that, that's a little thick of a pillow, but I'll just drag it in. Just place it kind of where it should be at one of the sides. So, alright, so that's about the length of it. So let me make this a little smaller. So I'm just hitting down on the arrow key after I selected the top edge to make it a little bit smaller. So I'll line it up there. You could be very precise on this to get the angle. It's all up to you. So I just want to put this in the middle. If I click on the mesh anywhere, it'll make a little blue dot so I know which side is which side. These are good little reference marks to just know. This edge will line up with this edge. To weld this in, you could do the free stitching or you could do the regular stitching. If you do the normal stitching, you have to add segments. At least if I select the normal tool, I'll select this edge and you'll get the length of it, which is 964.5 approximately. And you could just add it, click it anywhere. So that's actually pretty accurate right there. Another way to do it is if you get this line, 552.5, click it, and you could right click on the line, and you could just type in a number here, 552.5, and that'll be accurate. The other option to do it, to do the free stitching, let me weld these first two in. So I could click here with the segment sewing, and you could see the line on here. Let me actually move these a little bit farther apart so you can tell. They're stitched in. Okay. So that's the first stitch, and then the next stitch, I'll select this edge and this top edge. And then as I do it, you could notice it's correct. They're all going. It's not reversed or anything, so I'm fine on that. The free stitching is more complicated. So if I go to free sewing, I don't need the black guides anymore. I can select this edge, this vert, and this vert. I know this vert lined up with added already. And if I select that, it'll add this blue vert. So this blue vert basically says this is the length exactly to this. So I don't have to do any measuring and I could just select it and it'll be fine. This looks reversed right now, but at the moment it's not. So let's do the last line now. So I want us to always start on an edge where I know the exact thickness already is drawn out for me. So I'll select this vert because this is the vert I'm continuing in the same order, and I'll select the last edge. So as I'm using the free stitch, it'll remember the blue dot on here for reference. So if I select it again, I could select it and the last dot. So now everything should be welded in, but I can't sim this right now because everything's all stretched and weird and it won't work. Plus I didn't sew this top yet. So to do this, I would add internal lines. Here, since I added these black dots, I could select one here and add an internal line here. You'll see the reason why afterwards. I'll select here and add another one here. There was another one here. So this is the problem with free stitching. I do not have that extra black dot added in. So if I want to add it, I could. But first, let me delete those free stitching. Delete those stitches on those, and I just want to add these internal lines again. Add another verse. So this is 965. So let me add another edge on here. So if I go back to the add point option, right click on it, and I want to make this at 965 and hit OK. And then I could just stitch it in. So as I go, you can see this one was on the far left, so I'm just continuing the cycle. So far left, the top, and then this will be the top. So they're kind of staying on the same angle, so I won't get as confused. So this is left, left, and then left. It's just going around in a circle. It's going to look reversed here, but it'll be accurate when it gets on there. And then this one is here on the farther edge, so this one will be on the farther edge. And then since these are all on the left side, this is on the left side, so they all kind of wrap. So on the 3D view, it is looking a little reversed right now. Let's continuing add those internal lines on here, select here and here. So okay, after I add those internal lines, I'll show you why I added those. So if you go to the fold arrangement option, you can select these internal lines. So as I select it, I could rotate right on it. This makes it, when you simulate it, it'll make it go a lot smoother and won't have many errors. So as I select all of them, I could just rotate them all around. Let me just do it, and there. So one thing I didn't do, I didn't stitch the left side to the right side. So let's just go back to the sewing and stitch this side to this side. So I'm just doing the top and the top with the little dashes. So that's accurate right now. For the top section, it'll be easier to do the free stitching because I don't need the guides anymore. So if I go free stitching, I'll just select the left side of this, and then just continue it around. And just go. So as you see over here, everything's stitched, nothing is reversed. If I mess it up, I would see the reverse sewing. So if I hit space and simulate, it's just going to fall down and collapse on itself. But as of now, that's fine. So to give this pillow a little bit weight to it, a little bit fluff to it, you can select all the cloth and you want to change the pressure. Pressure is very sensitive. Change it to like 1 at first just to get a feel of what it's doing. So that's not enough pressure. I'll go to 2. And there we go. That seems about right for a pillow. Occasionally you want to save it, so I'll save as garment. So I want to save it, so I'm going to just name the file pillow01. So after I name it, just save it. So if I go to File, Open Garment, it always saves the PNG and the ZPack. The ZPack stores all the information. The PNG is just an image of it. I always delete the PNGs whenever just to optimize files. So that's a personal preference if you want to keep it or not. I always delete it. So okay, so I got the basic pillow made here. I want to add a little detail to it, a little bit more life to it. So usually pillow has a little bevels around the edges where it was stitched in. So you could do it 2 ways. The first way is the old way I would do it before they added a new feature. So let me just do it the old way. So let me move this up. Let me move this down to get it out of the way. So I would select this piece, copy it, and then I would just paste it. And then hold shift, drag it up. So this would be the top piece I want. Also freeze everything else. So none of this gets moved. Select everything and then just freeze it. So I'm not worrying about that getting messed up when I do this. So for this piece, a little edit extra going around, I do not need any of these black dots because I'll do the free stitching. This will be just a little bit smaller. So basically for this, I want to just have this a little bit, it's going to be a trim around the pillow. So I want to stitch this into the side. So I'll add another internal line on the side of the pillow. Hold shift as you create it, and I might not be been zoomed in far enough. If you hold shift, it'll make a straight line. And there we go. So this is just going to add a little detail to the pillow around it. So I just want to stitch this into this. So this top section into the top of the pillow, and this bottom part into the bottom part over here. So I'll stitch this into this and this top into this. And then if I simulate it, it'll go right on. So right now it's a little too tight, so I'll probably move this up as close as I can and then simulate it. So it adds a little bit of that little pillowness around the edge. So it looks like it was stitched in and stuff. You could also make this a little bit bigger to give it a little bit more thickness. And this is why I freeze it. Sometimes it gets inserted in the mesh and I just want to pull it out and not mess with the other one. Another option is I could select this and just change the layer to 1. The dialog that pops up and it should fix most of it, but it didn't. So just pull it out of the inside of itself. And there we go. I probably could make the thing a little bit longer than the original, and it might work a little bit better too. Also, what would help all these little small errors is the particle distance is too high. So let me change this to 15. Smooth it out. And there we go. So now it's not clipping in at all. It's working fine. So the other option, instead of doing it this way where you add the extra cloth on here, this is a little too long actually. Let me make it a little smaller. Instead of making the fabric pattern out and then stitching it in, there's another option. So on the left side you have the piping option. So I want to add piping to the bottom. So here you can select an edge, and as you select edges, it'll draw it out. When you double click, we'll finish it. So I'm just going around the whole pillow, and then at the end I'll double click. So you can see it on there. The problem is it never stitches the end of it, but if you go to the stitching option, I want to make it match the size of that. So instead of 3, let me go to 7. So that matches that size. And then you have the particle distance here, 1. So that's another option to do the piping. Fighting with itself. This shouldn't have problems. So maybe it's because it's frozen. Let me unfreeze everything. Away. There we go. Either way works just fine. So after I get the piping and the pillow all done, this is just a very simple pillow. I want to add a little bit of cross hatching on this, a little bit of detail. So I'll go back to the internal lines, the first option instead of the rectangle. And let me just drag an angle on there. So if I hold shift, it'll go at a 45-degree angle and then select it. So right now, if I simulate it, let me turn off the internal lines so I don't see it. So you don't notice it on there. So let me change this angle to say 0. So it's pulling it outward. So actually I want to go 360 instead. 360, and it'll pull it inward. Let me turn off fold rendering. So it's just pulling it in a little bit. I want to dupe this across the whole thing. So the way I would do this is I would select it, Control C, Control V, and then hold shift as you drag it out. I'm not going to be precise doing this, so I'll just click it right there, paste another one, paste another one, paste another one, and just keep doing it until it's done. You'll get that error. The majority of it is outside of the fabric pattern, so it won't paste it. The way I would do this is I would just select all these internal lines, and then I would just slide them over to be where I wanted them. So continuing to make these out, I would just select, now I could select a couple of them, and then Control Z, Control V, and then just paste it. And then paste it one more time. It might give me the error, yeah. So let me just select one at a time and paste it, and then paste another one, and make this a little bit smaller. If I hold shift, it'll drag on that edge. So now I could just Control C, Control V this line. Like I said, this is just for game development. I'm not going to be precise on all this. So just slide it out, and then just slide it down, slide it down, slide it down. This is not necessary. I'm just very organized and I just want to make it look nice. If I was in a rush, I would not be doing this. So as I do that, if I hit simulate, you'll see the pattern on there very subtly. So if I select all these, I want to just make a crosshatch, so I could just copy all of them. Control C, and then edit, paste, put it down on the bottom, and then mirror paste, and paste it on the opposite side, and then also do it here too. Let me mirror paste, which is, you can mirror paste with Control R or just right click. So as you do that, if I hit simulate, you get a little pattern on the pillow. If you want, you could leave the, instead of having it on off, you could put it on so it's a sharper edge. It's all, this is just your opinion, what kind of detail you want on there. So if I select it all, so after I select it all, you could turn the fold rendering on, and if I simulate it now, you'll get a little bit different look to it. So that's just a preference, what you think looks better, what you don't. The bottom, you won't even notice it. That would be basically how I would do a pillow. I'm going to make a pillowcase now. After this is done, I would select it all. I would freeze this. And then I would also move it up for the pillowcase. So select it all and then just move it up slightly. The problem when you do the pipping, you do not get it to, it doesn't freeze because just it's a mesh that it knows and it won't matter. But it stays live, but you can't pull it or edit it. So for the pillowcase, it's going to be very simple. I'll draw it over this. I want a little bit edge to the pillowcase, so I'll make it a little bit bigger than the original. So I'll just draw over the pillow. And there we go. There it is. This will be the bottom side, just like before. Let me put this on the bottom. And then move this up. So this is the pillow. I'll move that into one quadrant, and then this will be the pillowcase. So copy it, and then you could mirror paste it if you prefer that. But this is still the bottom. So I still got to rotate it. Flip normal, flip vertically. And let me just make sure the sides are right. So this is the left side, this is the left side. So if I slide that down, just putting the pillowcase around it. Just to make sure everything else, like basically the front, left, front right, and the front right to make sure these sides are lined up. This time, since I want to trim around the pillowcase, I don't want to weld exactly these seams with those seams. So I could select all this, and I would offset an internal line. And I would offset it by, say, 47. So it's precise doing it this way, better than just manually drawing and eyeballing it up. And then I would copy this, and then I would paste it here. I could do that, or I could do the same thing where I select all these edges, and then offset an internal line, and I said 47, and that's exact. The pillowcase now can be stitched in. The one side is usually bigger than the other, so if I select the top one so it overhangs on the pillow. Now I'll just stitch this in. So this, I believe, is this side, which is wrong. This is this side. So I can see it, just undo it. The top, the bottom, and then this side, and then the bottom, and then the bottom. And if I hit simulate, it'll just collapse on itself. Actually, let me change the particle distance because it's a little bit too low. Let me change to 15. And this front side is a little too long. Let me make that a little shorter. So I only need the extra side on one of them. I don't need it on both. So if I select all this, I could cut. So this section is now separate. I could delete that. I think when I delete that, it deletes the stitching. So let me just restitch this into this, the top into this, and the bottom into, and then simulate it. Which is going a little slow. There we go. Let me change all the particle distance. I think it's going a little too slow, so I'm going to bump it back up to 18 and simulate it. There we go. The front is still a little too long, so let me move that down. And I think I made it a little too tight. I'm going to also change the thickness rendering to 2 and 2. The inside pillow might actually be a little too low, so let me move that up. Let me move the top up. And then hit render. So there's a little pillowcase on it. I want to add a little bit of detail on it so it's not just a plain pillowcase, so I'll go back to the internal lines. And let me just add some horizontal lines. Why not? Copy that, paste it, and just do some detail. And let me see what angle I want at. Let me change this to 90. Let me move it a little closer. This is just all preference, what kind of detail you want. It's hard to tell which angle, which way it's coming out. 360. So it adds a little bit of a line. Let me select both lines, Control C, Control V, paste it in. Just eyeballing it. Just keep pasting them. And simulate. It's hard to see them still. Let me unfreeze it. Maybe that's why. Unfreeze. And yeah, there it goes. I think the pillow was just a little too tight on and everything was just rendering wrong. And this pillowcase might be too heavy, so let me bump up the pressure of the pillow to 4. Let it simulate because it's blowing the pillow up a little bit. And there we go. And now you can see the lines a little bit better. They'll just be guides for when you pull in ZBrush, you could add little details on those. They'll add these lines right on there, so it's easier to polygroup, and then you can mess with it a little bit better before you ZRemesh it. And then after I add the detail, I still want to save this garment, save as garment. It says save, so I don't overwrite. So this will be 02, and then I'll name this detail and save it. So guys, I think the pillowcase is a little bit too thin, a little too small for it. Let me just measure it up. It's long, but it's too thin. It's not wrapping around it correctly. So let me make this a little bit wider. So let me select the transform tool and just make it a little bit longer. And then just slide this up. Select the pillow, move it. I just want to move it up, and then I want to freeze this pillow again. Not the pillowcase. All right, let me hide this. Hide 3D pattern. Select it, and then freeze that, and then simulate this really quickly, the pillow again. The pillow is stuck inside the pillowcase right now, so it's not going right. So let me do that, simulate it, get it back to normal. Alright, that looks about right. Now it's a little bit too thick. So let me change the pressure down. All this is just playing with the settings, getting it to look right. So let me freeze this, and then move this back inside of here, and then unhide everything. So you could show all 3D patterns or Shift W if you want. Let me unfreeze the pillowcase, unfreeze, move this pillowcase up, and select everything. Because if it's under the grid, it's not going to simulate right, because the grid is basically the ground plane. So right now I just want to simulate it so it's not falling on the ground. And then just keep simulating it since it's clipping inside right now. There we go. So this basically would be a prop for a game if you want a pillow on a bed. So the lines aren't showing because I just added one line. So let me select all the left edges, Control C, Control V, paste those in. I just want to offset them just a tiny bit. Just offset them a little bit. Then paste another set and offset them just a little bit more on the other side. So instead of being 360, let me change it down to 0 and select the other ones. And then I'll hit simulate. There we go. So you get the little details out. Right now it's looking like it's going inward instead of I wanted to come outward. So the numbers are reversed. So let me reverse that really quickly. So change the 0 to 360. And then change the internal one from 360 to 0. And then if I simulate it, they'll come outward. So that has a little detail on the pillow. And let me paste this onto the back side. So select all those. I can copy it. Control C, Control V. Control V it, and then just paste it on the back side. And I don't need this one. Select all these again and just line them up a little bit better on the edges. They're not snapped on. Now it's snapped on. And then center it a little bit better. And then simulate it. And right now it's fighting with the pillow. So I still have to make it a little bit wider. So just select it and just scale it up a little bit more. It's easiest if you pull the mesh away. To get it to go right. This just takes time. You just don't want it colliding in when you simulate it. So right now that's a little bit better. Let me simulate it on. It's not touching the ground right now, but so that would be a pillowcase. So as I simulate it, it's still clipping through. Another option is just change this to layer 1 and then see if it'll pop it out better. Yeah, it's slowly pulling it out. So after it's pretty much done, I could just select it all and then I could unfreeze. And I usually save before I do this. Pillow detail. Now that I have both of them in here, I want to just simulate them together. I'll select this pattern. I want to freeze everything besides this pattern. So let me select everything, freeze it, select the bottom of the pillow, and then I want to reset this arrangement because it's wrapping around and I don't want that at the moment. So after I do that, let me just reset it to the bottom. I want this to be basically the bottom of the pillow. So this is basically the flat base of the pillow. And after that's on there, I want to freeze this so nothing touches that right now. And everything simulates around that. So unfreeze everything else, and then let me simulate it. I'll stop simulation just to get it so it doesn't do too much pressure at the same time. Select the top, move it up a little bit because it's going a little too fast for it. Let me select this and freeze this and let's do just the pillow first. Let the pillow fall into place. And the simulation, I'd probably change the pressure down to 2 because if there's a case on it, it'll be a little bit softer inside. So there we go. Let me freeze the pillow now and then unfreeze the top and then simulate. So everything is correct. This backside got a little bit intersected into it. So let me just pull this out. Just very quickly. If I want to pull it out quicker, I could use the pins, and I could just select the farthermost edge and then just slide it all out. And then I could right click, delete all pins. So that gets those back out. Same with this side, it's a little bit intersecting inside, so let me select that edge. Go to simulation. If you select it all with this option, you can slide them all at the same time. And then I could go back to the regular tool and delete all pins. So all the pillow is inside there now, and all the trim is outside. So at this point, I should be able to unfreeze everything, and it should simulate just fine. Unfreeze. And let me unfreeze the bottom. So after everything's on there, I want to simulate it all. So let me add pressure to the pillowcase too, so everything has some pressure, so it's not going to collide on itself. So if I simulate it now, it should all blow up pretty decently. The pillowcase I'll adjust afterwards. And then now that that's on there, I'll change this back down to 1. Slowly let it fall on itself. And then select the top, change the pressure to 0. I can probably make this a little bit more pressure. And then simulate it. And there we go. All this trim on the pillowcase is getting a little bit on the side, so let me just go back to the pins and select the edges and just move those back to where they should be. When I add the pressure, it messed it up a little bit. I just move those down, and then select this edge, and move those down. And then simulate it really quickly, and then unfreeze, and I want to delete all the pins. So that edge came down. This trim's coming down. So yeah, that's a simple pillowcase. It's a little bit more complex than you would think, but if you do it 1, 2, 3 more times, it'll go a lot faster. That's the pillowcase. If you want to do a little bit more detail, you could always select the pillow, and then you could freeze it. And as you do stuff, you could make the pillowcase coming off a little bit, just for extra detail in the for the game. If you want more wrinkles on it, you could do the pillowcase. You could change the fabric, stuff like that. I'm not going to do fabrics right now. So other stuff you could do is select it all and change the particle distance before you go into the ZBrush. So since it was chugging at 18, I'm going to just change it to 12. And it's recalculating, and then if I hit simulate, the poly density will get a little bit better. Then when you go into ZBrush, it'll have nice wrinkles and everything. You could do some more polish work, detail work if you want, but that would be the basic start for a pillow. You don't need all the detail in it. You could do anything in ZBrush. You could, if you didn't want to do the horizontal lines, you could do some kind of pattern in ZBrush, overlay a pattern with the UVs. So there's a lot of things you could do. This was just to go over the pressure options, which I won't touch after the next tutorial. It's not used as much for clothing. At least I don't use as much for clothing. I'm just trying to get you a little bit more familiar with Marvelous and a little bit more comfortable with using the tools. Even though this seems very simple, very basic to do, it's a good tutorial to do to start off with, without an avatar in here, just to create something from nothing. Hopefully that helps, and we'll go on to the next tutorial. Thanks, guys.